Hope everyone's having a pleasant day. If you saw the reveal last week of the 2024 F-150, which I'm not sure if they're calling the 15th gen or maybe the 14 and a half, and all the subsequent discussions and other videos that were made about it, and on all the other channels that you might watch, something didn't seem quite right, and it took a while for it to sink in. But you knew something wasn't right when the guy on the stage, and I think he was like the chief engineer maybe, the woman who was the sort of MC was asking, you know, what's your favorite feature in this new F-150? And he said, well, it's this awesome new tailgate that we've got. And it's the Pro Access tailgate. And you kind of had to stop for a second and say, wait a minute, what? The most exciting thing in a new F-150 is a tailgate? And you might have almost missed it if you weren't looking out for it. But again, the guy said his favorite feature in the so-called brand new 2024 F-150 was a tailgate. And again, it just didn't quite seem right. And then you think about it, there are no new engines. In fact, they've gotten rid of one of the engines, which is the 3.3 base V6. They have consolidated a lot of the options and packages to the point where it's very, very hard to get certain options on a standalone basis anymore, because they want to get you into a package. They want to, you know, you can't just buy this or that feature. You have to get the whole package. And what that means, the effect of that is that, you know, for people who want a specific thing, like maybe you want the sliding rear window, maybe you want the panoramic sunroof, maybe you want the tow mirrors, the towing mirrors, maybe you want the under seat rear storage, you know, pop-up storage console. Maybe you want, again, there are so many features and so many options on this truck. You're not going to be able to get as many individual options anymore, and Ford is going to force you, not necessarily for the tow mirrors, but for any little option that you want, they're going to say, actually, no, you can't get that as a standalone, you have to get it as a package. And they say it's improving their efficiency so much, and it's making it so much easier to build a new truck. They have gotten rid of, they said they've reduced the number of buyable configurations or buildable configurations by 90%. And what that really means is that they've taken away 90% of your choice as a customer in terms of speccing out exactly the truck that you want. And there's no, you know, they did a very good job of putting their spin on it and saying, yeah, it's going to simplify and it's going to make it so much easier to build trucks. Granted, it is hard to build trucks when there are so many options. And it's also hard for dealers to put trucks on the lot with what they think are the options are that people are going to want. But in reality, what they're saying is that you as a customer are going to have a lot fewer choices. And if you want specific things, like those tow mirrors, like that, you know, whatever it might be, you're going to have to pay more because you're going to have to get an entire option package or step up to an entire new trim level that maybe you didn't want to do. And so that's more money out of your pocket. And again, they did a good job of putting a lot of spin on it and making it sound like it was a great thing for everybody. But in reality, it's a great thing for Ford. It makes their life easier when in terms of speccing and building the trucks. And it makes it a lot easier for them to take your money, which is one of their core competencies. You might think building trucks and cars is their core competency, but taking your money is actually their core competency. In terms of specific changes, again, we don't see any reason to upgrade. We've got a 21 diesel F-150 that we're driving now. We had a 21 Power Boost that we liked a whole lot, and it was just about the perfect specs for us. Got rid of it when we picked up our 23 Super Duty. But for instance, that truck was an XLT with the 302A, the 12-inch screen, analog gauges, which we prefer to digital gauges because they're just a lot cleaner and a lot easier to read. Those are no longer available, by the way. That one had leather seats, which were added on by the dealer from a company called Catskin. It had the 6.5-foot bed, it had 4-wheel drive, Pro Power on board with the 7.2 kilowatt upgrade with 7.2 kWs of 240 and not just 2.4 kWs of 120. But it's not clear if we could even get that truck anymore. It had the sport package, which we didn't actually want. We prefer it without, the blacked out grille and the blacked out trim and the mandatory console shifter. We prefer the column shifter. But in any case, you could spec that truck exactly how you wanted it. And now, 3 years later, with the so-called refresh, you've got a lot fewer choices. And if you want certain options now, you're going to have to upgrade to an entire new package. Entire new options package, which might have a bunch of stuff on it that you don't want or don't need, or you might have to upgrade to an entire new trim level. And so it's just hard to see how the 24 F-150 is really an improvement. Again, the biggest feature and what that chief engineer was talking about as his most exciting, the thing he's most excited about is the Pro Access tailgate, the swing open tailgate. And that's nice, but really? We've gotten used to Ford every single time they release a new F-150 lately, going back almost a full decade, having a major, major improvement in its capabilities or its features. In 2015, it went to an aluminum body, which is an amazing, tremendous innovation in terms of weight savings. I think they said it saves 800 pounds. And then the fact that it's never going to rust, which is a huge deal if you live in most of the country where it snows. Unless you're like in the Southwest, unless you're in south of Atlanta in Georgia, or coastal North Carolina. Like everybody else really appreciates an aluminum body that's never going to rust. That's going to make your truck last a hell of a lot longer. And that was a huge deal in 2015 when they released it. Revolutionary, you might say. In 2018, they went to 10-speed transmissions. They released a diesel. They released an improved 3.5 EcoBoost. They made a bunch of changes in 2018, and then in 21 with the new interior, the Power Boost, and a few other a bunch of other upgrades, including again that Pro Power on board system. Huge improvement. And so every single 3 years we've gotten used to Ford releasing an F-150 that was a massive improvement in capabilities. And with this 24, yeah, you get a swing open tailgate and you get a new grille. Okay. You get 12-inch screens for everybody. That's great because really there's nothing wrong with that 12-inch screen. There's nothing not to like. And then the analog gauges are gone, which you can tell the reason Ford did it is because the all-digital gauges have gotten to the point where they're cheap enough to where it's actually cheaper to standardize on all-digital. And the analog, with all the moving parts in them, it was actually probably more expensive. But sadly, and we've got the Super Duty with those analog, with those all-digital gauges, you can't see the tachometer. It's basically useless. With this one, you can see it down to like, and it's not exactly calibrated down to the 100 RPM range, but you can tell, like right now we're at about 750. It's very, very easy to read, very clear. The speedometer, very easy to read. And that new digital screen in both the Super Duty and now every F-150, we're not a huge fan of it. Even the overhead gauges in the Super Duty, again, those are harder to read. Those digital overhead gauges are harder to read in the new Super Duty than the overhead digital gauges in this one, because this one has like thicker lines. It's a lot easier to read those too. So, not to be too much of a curmudgeon, but again, not impressed with that change. Ford said they have reduced 2,000 parts from the F-150, but they're not actually reducing prices. So they're just taking all those savings and putting them right in their pocket. The MSRP for the base truck is $35.8K, which is up by about 2,000. And a lot of that goes into the fact that it's a function of the fact that you can't get that 3.3 anymore. You got to get the 2.7 twin turbo as the base engine. And there's nothing wrong with that engine, the 2.7 EcoBoost. Everybody seems to really like it. Very, very powerful. Very durable, very long lasting. It's got a CGI block. It's got the block out of like a Cummins, you know. It's got a very, very tough block, and it's very well built. But a lot of people aren't going to want a turbo engine in a truck because they have very well-founded concerns about its longevity. And so you really wonder who's benefiting from the fact that that 3.3 base V6 is gone. There are new headlights. Apparently, everybody gets LEDs now. There's a one-piece coast-to-coast grille, which wraps around the headlights, and it's a little bit cleaner looking, I guess. The fact that every option package, every trim level has LED lights. Some people in cold weather climates might not appreciate that because LED lights will not melt off the snow and ice that are accumulating on them the way a regular incandescent headlight will. The sheet metal is almost entirely unchanged, and that's fine because it looks, there's nothing wrong with the current look on the 21 and newer F-150. Although the bed has a few more slots for lumbar, like if you want to segment it. It's got a couple of slots on the inside of the wheel wells, and that's nice. There is no bumper corner step like you get in the new Super Duty, and there's no side step on the side of the bed like you get in the new Super Duty. And to be honest, that's fine because we've got the bedside step and the corner step in our new Super Duty, and they're almost a little bit too high off the ground. It's about a 24-inch step up to get onto it. And what really would have been nicer is if Ford had just extended the running boards all the way back to the rear wheels, and then you could stand on the running boards to get into the bed, to access the bed. And I guess in a couple trims or with a couple options you can, but again, we don't miss the fact that those bedside and corner steps aren't there. There's a new retractable step under the bumper, and that's fine. Also the step built into the bumper is a little bit wider and a little bit deeper, and that's fine as well. Appreciate that. What's not clear is if the, on the tailgate that does not have the Pro Access, hinged opening, the tailgate that flips down, it's not clear if that pop-out tailgate step is still available, and so I guess we'll have to find out. The other thing that's not clear is the weight capacity on that tailgate, and how much it'll hold, because of the fact that it's got a swing, it's swinging and it pops open, and so it's got a latch holding it. And when that thing is folded down, you got to wonder how much pressure it's going to take before that latch releases, and all kinds of bad things happen. The plug for the wiring, the trailer wiring, like your 7-pin plug, that's on the right side now, which is kind of nice because that means there's less stuff in your way when you're going to step up on that step and getting inside get inside the bed, and that's good. Again, we talked about the analog gauges, and it's just too bad. We'll leave it at that. There is a 5G modem in every truck, and it's not clear if that means every truck has hotspot functionality, but I guess we'll find out. The other thing that's not clear, and I couldn't tell from the introduction, is if you still get this like hooded area for the 12-inch screen and then another separate hooded area for your gauge cluster, or if it just sort of flows together like in the new Super Duty. And to be honest, they both look fine. This layout looks fine, and so does the Super Duty. And if we had to guess, we'd say they're getting rid of this one just so they can standardize that dashboard across both the F-150 and the Super Duty. The heads-up display is available just like in the new 23 Super Duty, and that's an improvement. That's very, very useful. We use the hell out of it in our Super Duty. And there's nothing not to like about it, and it's good to see that it's in the F-150 now. You kind of saw that coming. The other thing that's new is that about the interior is that the center console, if you look at the way this thing is oriented, I think the new Super Duty rotated it to where these little tracks here that hold this thing up and hold up your little hanging files, I think that's been rotated 90 degrees to where it's kind of like so. And from the looks of things, the console design is a little bit less long and a little bit more wide. Or maybe this door is a little bit smaller in this dimension, and maybe the same or a little bit wider in that dimension. But they do look identical now between the Super Duty and the in the F-150. What's there to say? Pro Trailer Hitch Assist is new, meaning it'll back up to your trailer and put that ball right under the coupler in your hitch, and that's very neat. Because even with the cameras, it's still possible. It's still possible to get it wrong when you're backing up to the trailer. Onboard scales are available, which is nice because it's very, very easy to overload your F-150, especially if you're towing. And we've got our, I don't know how well you can see it, but we've got our 28-foot Featherlight gooseneck enclosed trailer hitched up. And last night when we weighed in, it turned out the truck was at like 5,900 pounds and the trailer was at 6,500 for a total of 12,500. However, a lot of the weight of the trailer was on the rear axle, and it turned out that we were just about maxing out or almost exactly maxing out the payload on our 2021 F-150, and that's without a huge amount of weight in the trailer, which just goes to show you just have to be real careful how much payload you put in these things, and the onboard scales help. What doesn't help is the fact that they got rid of the heavy-duty payload package. And so not only has the max payload gone down from like 33 to 2,500, but which is, I think, a 25% drop. When's the last time payload actually went down in a new pickup truck? But the max towing has gone down from, I think, 14,000 to 13,500. And they say, well, no big deal. It's still bigger than any other pickup. But again, a decrease in capability. And what you have to wonder is, did Ford get rid of the heavy-duty payload package because nobody's using it? And instead, are they going to offer it as a standalone truck called the F-200? And you kind of hope they will, but it's just not clear. In the sense of, will they make a version of this truck, not called the F-150, but called the F-200, and put that heavy-duty payload package in it to where your truck will actually be able to hold 2,500, 3,000 plus pounds and tow a lot more than a plain old F-150 can tow. And that's what we have to hope. But there's just no way to know. Just no way to know with Ford. So here's what we're talking about in terms of that, the weight on this truck, by the way. So we had 3,460 on the steer axle, 3,640 on the drive axle, meaning the front and rear axles of the pickup, for a total of 7,100. And guess what the GVW on this truck is? 7,100. So we had we had maxed out the GVW on this truck, and then on the trailer axle was 54 for a grand total of 12,500. Now, if you look at the door jamb, I'm not trying to get off track here, but if you look at the door jamb, the max load on the front axle is 3,750. The max load on the rear axle is 4,050. And those add up to a lot, but in reality, they cannot exceed, the two of them combined, cannot exceed 7,100. So, again, 3,750 and 4,050. And we were at 3,460, 3,640. So we didn't exceed either one of those axle limits, and we also didn't exceed, but we fully maxed out the 7,100 on the truck itself. And then with 5,400 on the trailer axles, we wound up with 12,500 altogether. And again, that's a 6,000 pound truck and a 6,500 pound trailer. Really easy to accidentally overload these trucks. They're not going to complain. They are going to squat a little bit, although this one doesn't. But the problem is they've got so much power in that 3.5 and the 2.7 EcoBoost. You will have no trouble getting a trailer started, but you could have a lot of trouble controlling it or stopping it. And that's the problem. So if Ford has taken out the heavy-duty payload package and they're going to put it in the in a separate truck and call it the F-200, that's fine with us. But we'll see if that happens. Anyway, Blue Cruise is still available with what they call version 1.2, which offers in-lane repositioning, automatic lane change upon blinker activation, just like a Tesla with the autopilot, or what they call enhanced autopilot. It's not clear if all the trucks are getting lane centering or not. Lane centering being this button here, and they call it the lane keeping system, but in reality it's lane centering, meaning it actually does your steering for you. And so if they're saying all trucks are getting lane keeping, meaning the system that'll kind of bump you back into your lane if you get out of it, that's nice. And if they're saying all trucks are going to get the lane centering, meaning it'll do your steering for you, that's even better. There's also this new thing called exit warning, so that when you open the door, it's going to warn you if there's a car coming up behind you or maybe a bicycle rider, so that you don't get the door torn off by some guy who's hauling ass past you, and that's nice. They got stolen vehicle services they've added or improved or made more widespread, and it's not clear exactly how much of that's going to help you. They say it's free for a year and then subscription based. So if your car gets stolen 1 year and a day after you buy it, I guess you're out of luck. Apparently, what it'll do is it'll make it impossible for a thief to do a factory reset when they steal your truck. But what would be nice is if they make it harder to steal the truck in the first place. We'll see. Apparently, it can tell if the truck's been lifted off the ground because somebody's trying to steal your rims. It can tell if somebody's unplugged your trailer because maybe they're trying to steal your trailer, and that's nice. The problem being that if you've got bad wiring or bad lights on your trailer, it's going to go off in the middle of the night. So anyway, powertrains, not a lot of news. Again, the 3.3 base V6 is gone. I wasn't going to buy it. You weren't probably going to buy it, but fleet buyers were going to buy it. And maybe people who just can't afford a $70,000 pickup truck were going to buy it. And again, that's just a little bit disappointing. The 5.0 is still there, which is almost a surprise. You had to wonder, first of all, how many people are still buying it, and how long Ford is going to keep it around, because you can tell they're trying to get you into an EcoBoost, either a 2.7 or a 3.5. The 5.0 has 12-to-1 compression, and it can actually burn E85. None of the others can burn E85, and the other ones, the turbo engines, have about a 10-to-1 compression. And they can also all run on 87 octane, which is amazing. The fact that a naturally aspirated 5-liter V8 with 12-to-1 compression can run on 87 octane. You know, when we were kids, if you had a high compression engine like that, you had to run 91, 92, 93 octane. And there was no turbo engine with a compression over about 8 or 8.5 to 1. So it's impressive how far engine technology has come. Anyway, the V8, by the way, is not available in the King Ranch or the Platinum, but it is the only option apparently in the regular cab short bed. So anyway, the 10-speed, we already talked about that. The 3.5 Power Boost, by the way, has a price reduction of $1,900, which is kind of unheard of, and to the point where it's the same price as the plain EcoBoost, but it may be unavailable on the XL, and that's a change, because you used to be able to get the Power Boost on every trim level. There's also no plug-in version, and it sounds like the battery hasn't gotten any bigger, which were two things we were kind of wondering if they were going to do: make the battery bigger so it was actually a useful truck in terms of fuel economy, and braking, for instance, on long downhill stretches. And we also were wondering if they're going to make it a plug-in hybrid. And I guess the answer is no to each of those. One interesting thing they mentioned is that 75% of hybrid customers order the 7.2 kW upgrade, which, again, everybody should. The CEO, Jim Farley, was talking about something called 7-day Pro Power Onboard before the reveal came out, and it's not clear exactly what he means. Was he saying a gas engine power boost can run your house for 7 days? on Pro Power on board, or was he saying that the Lightning could run your house for 7 days with Pro Power on board? It's not clear because that didn't come up during the reveal. And really nothing about the Lightning was discussed at all. Power levels apparently are the same, but MPG is to be determined because of new emission standards that Ford has to meet. But we do know that the hybrid still has 430 horsepower, 570 pound-feet of torque. And also that Ford is trying to double their hybrid sales from 10%, where they are now, to 20%, and make it one of the top 3 hybrids overall in the U.S. in terms of sales. They already have 75%, 2/3 of hybrid pickup truck sales, which is not a surprise at all. Trim levels, the Limited is gone, replaced by something called the Platinum Plus. And I guess apparently people were confused as to what was the top trim level, whether it was the Limited or the Platinum. And now you know the Platinum Plus is the top trim level. Although the base Platinum is called the Platinum High. So people might think, oh, the Platinum High, is that the high version of Platinum? Who knows? There's all different kinds of black appearance packages, and you almost wonder if Ford has basically built the new Lincoln Blackwood, if you remember what that is. King Ranch is apparently only available with 2-tone paint instead of like monochrome, and that's fine. Power running boards are no longer available on the Lariat, which is kind of a surprise, but we don't really care too much about those. STX is a standalone trim level now for the first time since 2014, no longer part of the XL. So it's not like the XL with the STX off-road. It's just the STX. And you got to wonder, did they get rid of the XL off-road in the course of doing that? XLT is not available with a regular cab anymore. You got to wonder how many people even buy a regular cab anymore. But again, somebody still does. Apparently all trucks are getting the 36-gallon fuel tank now, and that's nice because the bigger the fuel tank, the better. There's no downside to having a big fuel tank, except the only issue is that the Power Boost might not have room for it. So maybe the Power Boost is still only getting that 30.6-gallon fuel tank. The Tremor is standalone as it was before, I think. It has a neat integrated 12K winch with synthetic line and a built-in camera and parking sensors like on the winch, which is, I guess, kind of neat. We talked about the max payload. We talked about the max towing. The Raptor, one neat thing about the Raptor, and it's not really our truck. We're not into off-roading anymore. 25 years ago, that was kind of interesting and exciting. Not anymore. But it's got like cutouts in the bumper so that it's a lot easier for that tire to grab onto something that's very, very tall. And the max off-roading apparently, or the max water fording, is like 32 inches, which is amazing, which is astonishing without a snorkel or anything. The Raptor also gets a 450 horsepower, 510 pound-foot EcoBoost, and the Raptor R gets the Predator 5.2 liter supercharged V8 with 700 horsepower, 640 pound-feet, approximately, give or take. The Raptor also has those dual valve shocks that you can control independently for rebound and impact and rebound. Compression and rebound, I should say. And 37-inch tires, again, which are gigantic and very, very impressive on a factory truck, and Recaro seats, which, we hadn't heard the name Recaro seats in forever. And so again, it took a little while for it to sink in, but you kind of got to the end of that rollout there the other day, and you kept waiting for them to reveal something new and amazing and extraordinary that would make you want to trade in your 2022 or your brand new 23 F-150, and it kind of didn't happen. And it was just like, where's the beef? Not only was there no amazing engineering innovations like we had come to expect every 3 years, but the fact that there are less options available as a standalone option and more options that you have to get as part of a package, it was just it was just disappointing. Again, you know, we know it's hard building trucks, especially with all the part shortages during the pandemic. You know, some people's trucks were held up because of the massaging seats or the max recline seats. Some people's trucks were held up because of the bed liner, the spray-in bed liner, because they were having a hard time getting, I don't know, the resin for that. Who knows? But just because it's hard is no excuse to give up and say we hereby are reducing the number of buildable combinations by 90%, which is another way of saying we're reducing the customer's choice by 90%. Which is another way of saying this is really a working man's truck, a working person's truck no longer. And you kind of saw that coming a long way off. But it just sort of hits you pretty hard when Ford comes out and says, you know, we're getting rid of this option, we're getting rid of that option, we're getting rid of the base 3.3 V6. Not that anybody loves that engine, but it's a simple, durable, dependable option. When's the last time you heard anybody having trouble with the base 3.3 V6? You never have. And oh, by the way, when they standardize on 10-speed transmissions across the board, a lot of people like that old 6-speed automatic that they got rid of in 2021. So Ford is sort of creeping toward getting you into a more and more and more complicated truck with less and less customer choice involved. And it's just unfortunate. And it's the way it is. There's nothing you can do about it, but it's just sort of a surprise, and it leaves you thinking, really, the most innovation you guys can come up with in 3 years is basically a copy of the Rams swing open tailgate that they've had for a few years now, a number of years now. And on the bright side, it means there's no reason to get rid of your 2021 or 22 or even 18, 19, or 20 if you like it, because Ford has not made it an obsolete truck. Ford has made it a truck you're going to want to hang on to for the next 25 years and never get rid of. So in that respect, and that respect only, I guess they've done us all a favor. Not to take such, I hate to take such a negative tone, but you know, it is what it is. And that's kind of our reaction after a couple days of thinking about it. Hope you all are having a pleasant month. It's been a very, very beautiful September, notwithstanding today's gray skies out here in eastern Pennsylvania. And sorry about the length of this video. Again, there's just a lot of information we had to talk about. And but that's it for now. Thanks, everyone. We will talk to you later.